The first thing that I did was I took this piece of white oak. This is a piece of wood that I had from when I renovated my house back a few years ago. And this was a flooring piece of wood. And I took the rough shape of the knife and I just sketched it out on here. Now I'll just cut it to rough length and then cut it to width. Got the knife cut down to rough size. It's a little bit outside the line. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna resaw it, which is to bring down the thickness a little bit, because this is too. Belt and disc sander. This is not sponsored by Ryobi. I just wanted to point it out because I've been using this for like a couple weeks now, and I think it will be perfect for shaping this knife. The majority of this project is sanding and shaping. It's going to be how we sharpen the blade. It's going to be how we sand to the line. And as you can see, I cut inside of the line a little bit, which can't undo that now, but I think I'll just sand it and hopefully it will be good enough. So now I'm going to use the disc sander to hopefully sand it to the line, because I cut outside a little bit, and then I'm going to use the belt sander to sharpen the knife. So this is just going to be a time lapse of me sanding. Really beautiful piece of walnut, and I traced out for the handle. Now I'm just going to cut it to rough size. Let's see if maybe something like this maybe works. I've already made the first cut, so I'm kind of confident that'll work. I've got my push block here to keep my hand safely away from the blade. Let's see if we can make this cut safely. Alright, so I made the cut, but not all the way through. You can see I stopped short. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to have to the bandsaw and then cut off the rest of this and then sand it down so that that ends up being perfectly flush. That way it's a little bit safer than having to run the whole thing through the table saw. right there, and they're a little bit oversized because I'm going to flush trim them later. And now all I gotta do is put it in the clamps, and all I gotta do is put some glue on it, put it inside of some clamps, let it dry for probably about a good hour and a half, and then come back and see how well it's doing. I'm using this Type On 2 wood glue because it's water resistant, and since this thing's gonna be washed, it needs to be water resistant. I can't use the cheap stuff. But this stuff is what I gotta use just because this thing's gonna be washed. I need it to be waterproof. Clamping jig, that way I can hold the piece without my hand getting near the blade, and this wedge to wedge the clamp in there even further and keep it nice and tight. So now all I gotta do is make my cut. And there we go. Alright, so now I've got my drill with the bit, and I've got this piece of scrap wood, so I'm going to try to drill inside of the scrap wood first, just to see how well it works. Alright, now let's back it out. There we go. We got the hole drilled in the scrap board. I'll take the dowel and see if it fits tightly, and it does. So that means I grab the correct size drill bit and I can start to drill the actual hole. Alright, so I've got this clamped to my bench. That way I don't have to hold it, and that way I can drill with one hand while holding the camera. So I just want to let's do a hole right there. And I want to do this very slowly because that way I don't tear out the wood. Because I tore out the wood last time and it made the knife look really ugly. And I think I went all the way through, so let's back it out. Clean out the bit. And drill the second hole. I think I'm going to do it right there. Go. So let's undo the clamps and pull through. Now all we gotta do is stick our dowel inside of there and then trim it off. So I'm gonna do that off camera. Go. Now I've got my dowels inserted to strengthen it up. Now I gotta flush trim them. So I was going to use my DeWalt compact one-handed reciprocating saw, but I realized that I lost the blade for it, so I can't flush trim them this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over to my sander, and I'm just going to sand off the dowel until it's flush. And there we go, flush trimmed. And well, I flush trimmed the dowels, and I also flushed up the edges. As you can see, I didn't glue it perfectly straight because one's a little bit above the other, but when we're working, there's always going to be mistakes. So now what I want to do is I want to sharpen the blade, and I'm just going to use the belt sander for that and just tilt it at an angle and sand off a little bit until there's a taper on the front. Alright, now I'm going to use this butcher block finish. This is food grade, so it should hold up. It's food safe. And we'll just spread it all over here. And of course, I'm doing this off camera because it's the most boring task of all. This is the moment of truth. A wooden knife versus a yellow kiwi. Clean cut. Alright, see you next time.